Greetings, my fellow adventurers. It's Elara. Welcome back to our cozy sanctuary, where the boundless galaxy of Star Wars unfolds in all its mystique. Tonight, we journey into a realm where the ancient struggle between light and dark shapes the very fate of the stars. So, find your most comfortable spot. Let the whispers of the Force and the distant echoes of lightsabers surround you, and allow yourself to be transported into this epic tale of courage, destiny, and the eternal battle between Jedi and Sith. As always, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. The path between light and darkness. The abandoned moon in the Vandros system was a symbol of the eternal war between darkness and light. Time and conflict had eroded its once sturdy surface, leaving nothing but stones and the echoes of battles long past. The galaxy was vast, but today, this lonely moon would be the stage for a final confrontation between Jedi Knight Aelion and Sith Lord Kael. The moon's surface was cold and still, but the Force pulsed strongly here, as if the stars themselves were watching this moment unfold. When Aelion stepped onto the moon's barren ground, he immediately felt his brother's presence. The Force whispered Kael's darkness to him, an unmistakable shadow that weighed heavily on the air. This was more than a battle. It was a test of their bond, a final reckoning between two souls torn between light and darkness. Kael had walked away from the Jedi Order years ago, seeking power in the dark side. Since then, Aelion had followed the faint echoes of his brother's path across the galaxy, hoping to save him. And now, here they were, standing on the edge of their fates. Aelion's hand hovered over the hilt of his lightsaber as he took a deep breath. He tried to focus on the serenity the Force had taught him, yet his emotions surged within him like a storm. Kael had been his brother in all but blood, once a Jedi like him, walking the same path toward understanding the Force. Now, he was a Sith Lord, consumed by the very darkness Aelion had sworn to fight. As Aelion prepared himself for the encounter, his former master's words echoed in his mind. The darkness is not just outside of you. It lies within. The true battle is the one you will fight within your own soul. These words rang truer now than ever before. Facing Kael wasn't just about defeating him physically. It was about saving him from the grip of the dark side. Aelion ignited his lightsaber, the blue blade cutting through the shadows that loomed around him. But the light was not only in his weapon, it was within him, a beacon of the Jedi's purity and resolve. Being a Jedi wasn't about winning battles, it was about finding balance, resisting the pull of the dark side, and guiding others toward the light, on the dark side of the moon. Kael waited. His cloak fluttered slightly in the cold, desolate air, and his face was set in a hard, emotionless expression, one that came naturally to those who had fully embraced the dark side. Since abandoning the Jedi Order, Kael had discovered what he believed to be true power. The Jedi had been shackled by their fear, too blind to see the full potential of the Force. In contrast, Kael had welcomed the darkness, and it had shown him freedom. He looked out at the horizon, knowing that his brother was approaching, and allowed his mind to wander. Aelion, Kael thought, if only you could see it too. If only you could understand how the light has made you a prisoner. Kael's eyes gleamed with the dark knowledge he had gained. The dark side had taught him what the Jedi never could, that freedom came through power, and power could only be found by breaking the chains that the light imposed. As he waited for Aelion, Kael's mind flickered briefly with memories of their time together in the Order. They had trained together, explored the mysteries of the Force together. But those days were gone now, replaced by the cold certainty that this would be their final meeting. As soon as he sensed Aelion drawing near, Kael's hand tightened around his lightsaber hilt. He ignited it, and the red blade sprang to life, its glow bathing the ground beneath him in a malevolent light. This was not merely a duel, it was the collision of two opposing ways of life. The Jedi sought order, peace, and restraint. The Sith embraced the chaos, the power that came from letting go of fear and limitations. And now, the Force itself seemed to tremble in anticipation of the coming clash. As the distance between the brothers closed, the air around them crackled with energy. The Force flowed between them like a storm, charged with the weight of destiny. Aelion made the first move, his blue lightsaber slicing through the darkness. But his strikes were measured, almost hesitant. He didn't want to harm Kael. He wanted to save him. Every swing of his blade carried with it a plea for his brother's redemption. The Jedi taught compassion, mercy, and the belief that no soul was beyond saving. Kael, however, was relentless. His red blade crashed against Aelion's with brutal force, every strike designed to break his brother's resolve. To Kael, Aelion's hesitation was a sign of weakness. "You still believe the light can save you?" Kael sneered as he launched another furious attack. "The light only makes you weak. You cannot see the power in front of you because you are too afraid to embrace it." Aelion could hear the bitterness in Kael's voice, and he understood the pain that drove his brother to the dark side. Kael's search for power had not been driven by malice, but by a desire to break free from the limitations imposed by the Jedi Order. Yet, that very desire had led him into a prison of darkness. Aelion parried Kael's strikes with calm precision, but his heart was heavy with the realization that saving his brother might not be possible. The lightsabers clashed again and again, the hum of the blades punctuated by the sparks of energy that burst with every collision. As they fought, Aelion could feel the Force between them, not just as a weapon, but as a conduit for their thoughts and emotions. He could sense Kael's inner turmoil, the anger that masked a deep, hollow pain. Aelion had once known that man. His brother had been a part of the light too. Now, Kael was consumed by the very darkness they had sworn to fight. This duel was more than just a physical battle. It was a philosophical confrontation between two opposing views of the Force. The Jedi and Sith were not just warriors. They represented two completely different ways of seeing the galaxy. As they fought, Aelion and Kael's blades mirrored the deeper conflict within their hearts. "The Sith are free!" Kael shouted as he unleashed a powerful blow. "The Jedi are slaves to their fear. They chain themselves to a false peace, denying the power of the Force." Aelion, dodging Kael's assault, felt a question rise within him. Could Kael be right? The Jedi taught restraint, the suppression of fear, anger, and even love. But was that truly the right path? He could see the darkness in his brother's eyes, the terrible cost of embracing that power. The dark side might grant strength, but it also consumed the soul. "The Jedi don't fear power," Aelion replied, blocking Kael's strike. "We seek balance. The dark side might give you strength, but at what cost? Look at yourself, Kael. You've lost everything. Your compassion, your peace. Is this the freedom you wanted?" As their blades clashed, the two brothers found themselves locked in a struggle that went beyond the physical. Aelion could sense the tension in Kael, the way his brother's words were filled with conviction, but his actions were driven by desperation. Kael was trying to prove to himself as much as to Aelion that he had made the right choice, but deep down, there was doubt. As the duel raged on, both brothers grew tired, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. Aelion's patience, a hallmark of his Jedi training, kept him grounded, but even he could feel the strain. Kael's ferocity, while formidable, was beginning to wane. The dark side had given him great power, but it also took its toll on his body and spirit. Each blow carried the weight of Kael's growing frustration, his every attack filled with more anger, more fear. Aelion saw an opening. With a swift and precise move, he disarmed Kael, sending his brother's lightsaber flying from his hand. Kael dropped to his knees, the once proud Sith Lord now at his brother's mercy. But Aelion felt no triumph. He hadn't won. This battle had no victor. The only thing Aelion wanted now was to save his brother, to pull him back from the abyss. Aelion deactivated his lightsaber and approached Kael. "This doesn't have to end this way," he said softly. "You can still come back to the light, Kael. I can feel it. There's still good in you. The darkness hasn't consumed you completely." Kael looked up at his brother, his face a mixture of anger, exhaustion, and something else. Something Aelion hadn't expected. Doubt. For the first time since they had started fighting, Kael seemed uncertain. He had embraced the dark side, believing it would free him, but now he found himself bound by chains of his own making. Sith philosophy had promised power, but it had delivered only emptiness. The Fall of Kael, the barren moon of Vandros, once the setting of a brotherly confrontation, was now quiet. The aftermath of Aelion and Kael's duel left the air thick with tension, yet beneath that silence, something darker stirred. The blue glow of Aelion's lightsaber had long since dimmed, replaced by the soft hum of hope that briefly flickered between the brothers. But this fragile peace was deceptive. Kael's fall into darkness was far from over. As they stood side by side, Aelion could feel the weight of Kael's inner struggle. He had seen a glimmer of light in his brother, a brief moment where the dark side's hold seemed to waver. Aelion believed in redemption, in the Force's ability to heal even the deepest wounds. For a moment, Kael had seemed to reach for that light, to grasp the cant that Aelion extended. But in the depths of Kael's mind, the darkness had not loosened its grip. It had merely recoiled. stood waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Kael followed his brother away from the battlefield, his lightsaber still clipped to his side. The tension of their earlier duel had faded, but in its place, Kael felt an overwhelming emptiness. Aelion's words still echoed in his mind, words that spoke of hope, of redemption, of returning to the light. For a fleeting moment, Kael had wanted to believe those words. He had wanted to walk the path of light again, to feel the warmth of the Force, without the coldness of the dark side's grip. But deep within, a darker voice whispered. It was a voice that had followed him ever since he left the Jedi Order, a voice that had grown louder with each victory, each act of cruelty committed in the name of power. That voice now called to him, reminding him of the strength he had gained. It wasn't the Jedi that had freed him, it was the Sith. You are weak without the dark side, the voice hissed in his mind. Without the darkness, you are nothing. Aelion seeks to chain you once again, to make you a slave to the light. Kael clenched his fists as the voice grew louder. Could he truly abandon the power he had gained? Could he simply return to being the student, living under the strict rules of the Jedi, suppressing his emotions, his desires? The dark side had shown him the truth. Power came not from restraint, but from embracing one's passions. He had found freedom in that chaos, and yet, something inside him still clung to the hope Aelion had offered. But that hope was a weakness, and in the galaxy ruled by the Force, weakness was death. Aelion sensed the turbulence within Kael, but he believed his brother was beginning to change. They walked together in silence, leaving behind the battlefield that had witnessed their first real clash in years. Aelion held on to the belief that Kael's return to the light was possible. He had seen glimpses of the brother he once knew, buried beneath the Sith Lord's mask. The road ahead would be long, but Aelion was determined to help Kael find his way back to the light. Kael, Aelion began, his voice gentle yet firm. I know you can feel it. The light is still within you. I've seen it. The darkness hasn't consumed you fully. There is still time to turn back, to return to who you were meant to be. Kael did not respond immediately. His gaze was fixed on the distance, his mind swirling with conflicting thoughts. Aelion's words were sincere, and for the first time in years, Kael felt the warmth of the Jedi teachings, trying to break through his hardened exterior. But the dark side was not easily defeated, and the pull of its power tugged at him relentlessly. I don't know if I can, Aelion, Kael finally said, his voice laced with doubt. I've done things, terrible things. How can I ever find peace in the light again? Aelion placed a hand on his brother's shoulder, offering reassurance. We all make mistakes, Kael. The path of a Jedi is not without its challenges, but the Force is about balance. You can find your way back. You just have to believe it's possible. As they continued their journey toward Aelion's ship, Kael's inner struggle intensified. His brother's words planted seeds of doubt, but they were not the only voice within him. The dark side beckoned, its whispers filling his mind with promises of power, freedom, and control. The Sith teachings had always offered immediate strength, a seductive allure that was difficult to resist. And now, as Kael stood on the precipice of his decision, the dark side made its final move. Suddenly, a sharp pain seared through Kael's mind, as if the dark side itself was lashing out in anger. The voice in his head grew louder, more insistent, demanding that he seize control. "They will never accept you," it snarled. "You will always be a traitor in their eyes. The Jedi do not forgive. They do not forget. They will imprison you, weaken you, strip you of your power. But the dark side, it will make you strong, stronger than you've ever been." Kael stopped walking, his breath quickening as the dark side's grip tightened around his heart. Aelion turned, concern flashing in his eyes. "Kael, what's wrong?" Kael's gaze lifted to meet his brother's, and for a moment, there was a flicker of something, a plea for help, perhaps, or a moment of hesitation. But then, like a storm crashing down, the darkness surged forward, drowning out all doubt. The dark side took hold of Kael once again, feeding off his fear and anger. I can't go back," Kael whispered, his voice trembling, and then louder, more forcefully, "I won't go back." Before Aelion could react, Kael's hand shot to his lightsaber. The red blade ignited with a fierce hiss, the glow of the dark side illuminating his face. His expression twisted with a mixture of rage and sorrow as he raised the blade against his brother. "Kael, no!" Aelion shouted, but it was too late. With a swift, powerful strike, Kael lunged at Aelion, his attack fueled by the overwhelming power of the dark side. Aelion barely had time to ignite his own lightsaber, the blue blade coming up just in time to block Kael's vicious assault. The brothers were locked in combat once again, but this time, there was no hesitation in Kael's strikes. He fought with the full fury of the dark side, his attacks relentless and fueled by years of buried resentment. Aelion's heart sank as he realized what had happened. The brother he had hoped to save was gone, swallowed by the very darkness he had sought to escape. Kael was no longer conflicted. He had fully embraced the dark side once more, and this time, there was no turning back. The clash of lightsabers echoed through the barren landscape as the brothers fought. Aelion fought defensively, trying to reason with Kael even as he parried blow after blow. "Kael, stop this. You don't have to do this," Aelion pleaded, but his words fell on deaf ears. Kael's face was twisted with fury, his eyes blazing with the corrupting influence of the dark side. "You don't understand, Aelion," Kael shouted, his strikes growing more desperate. "The light only holds us back. I will never be a slave to it again." The force of Kael's attacks was staggering, and Aelion could feel himself being pushed to the brink. His brother's power had grown immensely, and the dark side had given him a level of strength that was terrifying. But Aelion knew that this strength came at a price. Kael was losing himself to the darkness, and the longer the battle continued, the further he would fall. In one final, devastating strike, Kael knocked Aelion's lightsaber from his hand, sending it clattering across the rocky ground. Aelion staggered back, defenseless, as Kael stood over him, his red blade humming menacingly. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Kael's chest heaved with exertion, his face a mask of rage and pain. Aelion looked up at his brother, his heart heavy with sorrow. "Kael, please," Alien whispered, his voice barely audible. "You're my brother." Kael's grip tightened on his lightsaber, the dark side urging him to finish it, to strike down the one person who had always stood in his way. But even in that moment of darkness, something held him back. A flicker of doubt, a remnant of the bond they once shared. But it was only a flicker. With a final pained scream, Kael turned and fled into the night, leaving Aelion alone in the darkness. The betrayal was complete. Kael had chosen his path. Aelion, on his knees, watched helplessly as his brother disappeared into the shadows, the red glow of his lightsaber fading into the distance. The light had lost, and the darkness had claimed another soul. The final confrontation. The galaxy trembled under the growing shadow of Kael's influence. Once a mere apprentice of the dark side, Kael had risen to power quickly, drawing strength from the chaos and fear. He spread across the star systems. The Sith Lord had set his sights on complete domination, his eyes burning with a hunger that could not be sated. World by world, his forces expanded, and now he was preparing for his final conquest, the planet where it had all begun. Aelion stood on the edge of a cliff, overlooking the battleground below. The once peaceful world was now ravaged by Kael's war machines, cities reduced to rubble as the dark side corrupted everything it touched. Aelion could feel the despair in the air, the hopelessness of the people who had been caught in the crossfire of a war they never asked for. His heart was heavy with the knowledge that Kael was responsible for all of this. But more than anything, Aelion was weighed down by the knowledge of what he would have to do. Far across the battlefield, Kael stood at the head of his army. His crimson lightsaber ignited, casting a hellish glow on the soldiers surrounding him. His armor was adorned with the symbols of the Sith, and his face was set in a hard, determined scowl. He had become everything the dark side promised, a being of immense power, feared across the galaxy. Kael gazed at the horizon, knowing that Aelion was near. His brother had always been predictable, clinging to the Jedi code, always seeking redemption where there was none to be found. Kael had no use for redemption. The dark side had shown him the path to ultimate freedom, a path that did not bend to the whims of others, or to the teachings of the Jedi. This world would be his, and through it, the galaxy would bow to his will. "I will reshape this universe," Kael muttered to himself, his voice cold and resolute. "And no one, not even Aelion, can stop me." Aelion had tried for so long to save Kael, believing that somewhere deep inside, the brother he once knew was still there. But now, as he stood on the brink of this final confrontation, Aelion felt the truth settle in his heart. Kael was lost. The dark side had claimed him completely, and no amount of pleading or reasoning could bring him back. The galaxy was in danger, and the only way to save it was to stop Kael for good. The thought of killing his brother weighed heavily on Aelion's soul. He had been raised to believe in redemption, to never give up on those who had fallen to the dark side. But he also knew that Kael was no ordinary Sith. His power had grown beyond imagination, and his ambition was limitless. The galaxy couldn't survive another day under Kael's rule. As Aelion watched the destruction below, he knew what he had to do. Kael had to be stopped, and that meant making the ultimate sacrifice. Aelion approached the battlefield, his presence known to Kael before he even spoke a word. The brothers stood across from each other, the weight of their pasts pressing down on them both. The air between them crackled with the energy of the Force, a mixture of light and dark, balanced precariously on the edge of violence. Kael smirked as he saw Aelion approach. "You're predictable, brother," he said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "You've come to plead with me again, haven't you? To offer me another chance to return to the light?" Aelion's face was solemn as he ignited his blue lightsaber. The hum of the blade echoed across the battlefield, a sharp contrast to the crackling of Kael's red lightsaber. "I don't want to fight you, Kael," Aelion said, his voice steady but filled with sadness. "But you've left me no choice. You've destroyed entire worlds, and you won't stop until the galaxy is nothing but ash. You've embraced the darkness fully, but I have to believe there's still good in you. It doesn't have to end this way." Kael's expression hardened. "You still don't understand, Aelion. The Jedi Code has blinded you. There is no light, no good, no evil, only power. And I will use that power to reshape the galaxy. I don't need saving. I need you out of my way." Without another word, Kael lunged forward, his lightsaber cutting through the air with deadly precision. Aelion raised his blade just in time to block the strike, but the force of the attack sent him stumbling back. Kael pressed the assault, his strikes coming fast and furious, each one filled with the rage and hatred he had nurtured for years. Aelion fought defensively, parrying blow after blow as he tried to reach his brother. "Kael, this isn't the way. You're stronger than this. Don't let the dark side consume you." But Kael was relentless. "The dark side is my strength, Aelion, and soon it will be yours too, or you will fall." As the duel raged on, Aelion realized the truth. Kael was gone. The brother he had once known had been consumed by the dark side completely. There was no turning back for him now. Each of Kael's attacks was filled with lethal intent, his desire for power having twisted into an obsession that left no room for mercy. Aelion blocked another heavy strike and felt the dark energy radiating from Kael. He could see it in his brother's eyes. There was no trace of the man he once was. All that remained was a Sith Lord driven by ambition and hatred. "I'm sorry, Kael," Aelion said softly, his voice filled with sorrow. "I tried to save you, but I can't let you destroy the galaxy. You've left me no choice." Kael sneered, his red lightsaber casting an ominous glow on his face. "You think you can kill me, Aelion? You're weak, just like the rest of the Jedi. I will crush you, and then I will burn the galaxy to the ground." Aelion took a deep breath, centering himself in the Force. He knew what he had to do. For the sake of the galaxy, for the countless lives that depended on him, he would end this, once and for all. The battle resumed with even greater intensity. Kael's attacks were vicious, but Aelion had found his focus. He blocked each strike with precision, his movements calm and deliberate. For the first time, Aelion wasn't trying to save Kael. He was fighting to defeat him. Their lightsabers clashed again and again, the sound of the blades filling the air. Kael's rage fueled his strength, but Aelion's resolve gave him clarity. He could see the openings in Kael's attacks, the moments where his anger left him vulnerable. With a final, calculated move, Aelion disarmed Kael, sending his red lightsaber flying from his hand. Kael staggered back, defenseless, but Aelion did not hesitate. In one swift motion, Aelion plunged his lightsaber into Kael's chest. For a moment, everything went silent. Kael's eyes widened in shock, his expression a mixture of disbelief and pain. He looked up at Aelion, his breath shallow, as the life began to drain from him. You were supposed to be weak," Kael whispered, his voice barely audible. "How?" Aelion knelt beside his brother as he lay dying. "I'm sorry, Kael," he said, his voice heavy with grief. "I had no other choice." Kael's eyes fluttered as the darkness finally released its hold on him. For a brief moment, the hatred and rage in his gaze faded, replaced by something that almost resembled peace. I wanted to be free," Kael murmured, his voice fading. "But I was wrong." And with that, Kael's body went still, the light of his life extinguished. Aelion stood up, his heart heavy with the weight of what he had done. He had saved the galaxy, but at the cost of his brother. The battle was over, but the scars would remain forever. The galaxy was safe, but Aelion had lost everything. As the tale of the final battle between Jedi and Sith draws to a close, let the courage and sacrifice of our hero remind you that even in the darkest moments, the light of hope can never be extinguished. Though the path was fraught with pain and difficult choices, the strength of the Force guided Aelion, and through him, a galaxy was saved. Remember, my fellow adventurers, that no matter how deep the shadow, the resilience of the heart and the power of unity will always break through. Thank you for joining me on this journey tonight. Until we meet again, may your dreams be filled with the Force, epic duels, and the eternal dance between light and dark. Sleep well, and good night.